Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Yeah, I think Ati will Sri Mati. When you're ready, you can start, Mati.
Sure, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Dandak Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudeva. Start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narotayam. Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaye Uttate Nistaprayetu Abheshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhakti Bhavati Uttam Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistike. Today we're reading from Canto 5, Chapter 11. Bharata instructs King Rahugana. Text 9 through 17.
Mati, today is text 1 to 8, Mati.
Radhika Mataji sent me the message that text 1 through 8 was read yesterday, Prabhuji.
Oh, okay, got it. Let me see.
Yeah. I can read if needed.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Sundarachal Prabhu, you covered 1 to 8 yesterday?
No, I said like 1 to 8, Mataji, today.
Oh,
So,
1 to 8.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, no problem.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Communication.
yeah, that's okay. Text 1 through 8. The Brahma Jada Bharata said, "My dear king, although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a very experienced man. Consequently, you cannot consider an experienced person. An experienced person does not speak the way you are speaking about the relationship between a master and a servant or about material pains and pleasures. These are simple external activities. Any advanced, experienced man considers the absolute truth does not talk in this way." Text 2. The king, my dear king, talks of the relationship between the master and the servant, the king and the subject, and so forth, are simply talk about material activities. People interested in material activities, which are exponent in the Vedas, are intended on performing material sacrifices and placing faith in the material activities. For such people, spiritual advancement is definitely not manifested. Text 3. A dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial, and similarly, one eventually realizes that the material happiness in this life or the next, on this planet or the higher planet, is insignificant. When one realizes the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insignificant to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. Text 4. As long as mind of the living entity is contaminated by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, his mind is exactly like an independent, uncontrolled elephant. It simply expands its jurisdiction of pious, impious activity by using the senses. The result is that the living entity remains in the material world to enjoy and suffer pleasures and pain due to material activities. Text 5. Because the mind is absorbed in desire for pious and impious activities, it is naturally subjected to the transformation of lust and anger. In this way, it becomes attached to material sense enjoyment. In other words, the mind is conducted by the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. There are 11 senses and 5 material elements, and out of these 16 items, the mind is the chief. Therefore, the mind brings about birth in different type of bodies among demigods, human beings, animals, and birds. When the mind is situated in a higher or a lower position, accepts a higher or a lower material body. Text number 6. The material mind covering the living entity's soul carries it to different species of life. This is called continued material existence. Due to the mind, the living entity suffers or enjoys material distress and being happiness. Being thus illusioned, the mind further creates pious and impious activities and their karma, and thus the soul becomes continued. Text 7. The mind makes the living entity within the material world wander through different species of life, and thus the living entity experience mundane affairs in different forms of human beings, demigods, fat person, skinny person, and so forth. Learned scholars says that bodily appearance, bondage, and liberation are caused by the mind. Text 8. When the living entity's mind becomes absorbed in sense gratification of material world, it brings about his conditioned life and suffering within the material situation. However, when the mind becomes unattached to material enjoyment, it becomes a cause of liberation. When the flame in the lamp burns the wick improperly, the, t- the lamp is blackened. But when the lamp is filled with ghee and burning properly, then it's brightly illuminated. Similarly, when the mind is absorbed in material sense gratification, it causes suffering. And when detached from material sense gratification, it brings about the original brightness of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much. So let me we'll offer a brief praise and we'll continue. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Sharakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Destarni Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasati Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is a wonderful section. These several chapters of Jadabharata and King Raghuna conversation gives us spiritual instructions for the benefit of all of us practicing devotees, not just for the benefit of King Raghuna. So in the last chapter, King Raghuna chastised Jadabharata for not carrying the palanquin properly. And through that process, he sarcastically made some comments and Jadabharata responded also. And then towards the end of the last chapter, King Raghuna started asking some more rational questions to challenge Jadabharata's responses. Of course, in a submissive way, because he said he wanted to make sure he is not offended, Jadabharata is not offended. So he submissively placed some questions before him also. The questions are surrounding like how he was giving an example of a pot that is carrying milk and rice, for example. That let's say we're cooking sweet rice with milk and rice, and then it's under fire. It's on the top of fire. So fire is touching the pot, and he was giving the example that pot is because milk and rice are touching the pot, so they're also getting affected because the fire touching the pot touching the milk and rice like that. So that's one of the analogies he was giving. So like that, he was explaining some, and then he was also telling how king is supposed to punish the wrongdoers so that they can be put in the proper order like that. So is nothing wrong in that doing like that. Like that, he was giving some arguments. Now, Jadabharata started to give him knowledge. So he starts with two primary aspects that we cannot. If I'm absorbed materially, absorbed in enjoying sense gratification only, if that's my focus in life, how can I enjoy with seeing nicely things? How can I enjoy with eating nice things? How can I enjoy hearing nice things? If that is my focus, that means I'm materially absorbed, then I can understand the higher knowledge of Tattva, higher knowledge of absolute truth. like that. That is one theme he goes on for the first few verses, first 3 verses. And then following that, he talks about how the covering we have. We have two coverings as a soul. One is the subtle body, that is mind, intelligence, false ego, and then the gross body, which is made of this earth, water, fire, air, and ether, like that. So how that within the subtle covering, the mind is causing the entanglement in this material world, in this body, in this gross body, and the entanglement staying in this material universe in different species, like that. So generally, when we want to know what is the solution for some problem, first we need to be able to define what is the problem. Even in the office, many of you might notice that it started with problem statement. So when you're very, very clear with the problem, then we can figure out how to get a solution. That is one aspect, number one. So when we get the problem, understand the problem in terms of the symptoms and in terms of the experience that we have right now, then we can look for the root cause of the problem. Of course, to find the root cause of the problem, many times I may not be in a position to find the root cause of the problem. I need to go to somebody or a scripture that can look at it from higher perspective, from a higher angle. What is the root cause of the problem? Then, when I understand what is my problem, what is the root cause of the problem from higher sources, then I can also seek for the solution. What is the solution for this root cause, like that? So that is why but Jadabharata is starting to explain what is the cause of our problem currently. Then that way, then we know the solution, then we can understand how to overcome the problem also. So that is where this overall theme is. Overall theme is on two aspects. One is how, when we are materially absorbed, it's not favorable for devotional service to understand Krishna or Bhakti, number one. Number two, how the mind, if it is unfavorably engaged, it can be cause of the problem. And how if it is favorably engaged in devotional service, it can be part of the solution also. That is the overall theme for this section today. So I wanted to state the essence first, so you were not lost in the details. And then we go through some of the verses now. So in the first verse, Jagabharata starts to explain. Interestingly, this is like Prabhupada also comments in the verse referring to Bhagavatam 2.11 verse, where Krishna chastises Arjuna right away when he starts speaking. Krishna says, while speaking learned words, you are lamenting for what is not worthy of grief, like that. So you're speaking like a learned person, but you are like, but your words are like foolish, like that. In essence, Krishna told Arjuna. So Jadabharata also is saying to Raghuna, King Raghuna, similar way. He's saying, although you are not at all experienced, you're trying to speak like a very experienced man. Meaning, he's speaking, whenever he's speaking, whenever we're thinking, whenever we're acting, our actions are based on our thoughts. So the thoughts are based on our consciousness and what is our level of understanding. So if my understanding is that I need to keep my body happy and I should ensure that body doesn't suffer. If that is my level of understanding, that is my level of consciousness, bodily consciousness, then my words and actions follow according to that. Because then I'll make sure my body is comfortable. If somebody is disturbing my body, I'll say, why are you making mess of my life, like that? So that is my level. But if I understand a higher spiritual conception, how I am a part and parcel of God, I'm a servant of Krishna, then I give less importance to the body and more importance to what is affecting my soul. For example, somebody is giving me Mayavadi philosophy. That affects my soul's understanding of Krishna. So then I will be more careful about that than some pain coming to the body because of not hearing that Mayavadi philosophy. So that's how we make decisions based on what is our higher level of understanding, what is our purpose of life, especially the universal purpose of life. So that's why he's telling that you're speaking about the material body level. You're saying that, remember in the previous chapter, he also said, I'm the master and you're a servant, so you need to serve me. So I need to chastise you, like that he was talking about. So that's why he's talking about, if an experienced person doesn't value so much about materialistic pain and pleasure, and doesn't value so much about the current designations we are in this body like that. So these are simply external activities, he's saying. So, but if an experienced person who understands absolute truth, and they don't talk about it this way, what does it mean? What does it mean is they don't value that so much like that. It doesn't mean that we don't care about body. If something happens to body, we don't go to doctor. That is not what it means. What it means, what is of the highest value in our life? Because values are also like a hierarchical for us. For example, our highest value is to serve Krishna, to grow in our life, to develop our consciousness so we can go closer to Krishna. That is the highest value we have. So now every other value we have is supporting that highest value. For example, to achieve the purpose of life, to be situated in service of Krishna, to be engaged in service of Krishna nicely, I need to have good health. So that's a value, but is not above the other value. So, however, in one sense, health is of the highest value, because if you don't have good health, then we cannot practice spiritual life also. But still, with the understanding, in terms of practical dealings, daily life, we can make health as the highest priority. That is absolutely essential before even sadhana. But in terms of life's value and life's goal, being healthy is not the highest goal for us. Highest goal is to serve Krishna. To support that, I need to maintain my good health. For that, what I do, then for that I maintain a good diet. For that also, I maintain a good exercise like that. So that's how the values go on. That's what Krishna is advising Arjuna. Arjuna also see the higher picture first, higher goals first. Similarly, here he is explaining that you're talking like an experienced person, but not so like that. So Prabhupada is writing in the purport, one has, who should we learn from? Whose words we should care about? Whose words we should let our hearts get impacted? Whose words we should not let our heart get impacted? That also is the principle Prabhupada is teaching through this, which is very, very important principle for us. For example, Prabhupada is telling here, if somebody has a higher spiritual knowledge, when they share some wisdom, that is of more value for us compared to somebody doesn't have spiritual knowledge, somebody is speaking from mundane perspective only. That is a lower value for us. So higher value, lower value. That we need to be very careful and clear. So that means if somebody doesn't know the purpose of life, somebody doesn't know the value of Krishna consciousness, but they only know about value of health, value of taking care of the family, value of taking care of the society, only they know that much only, then we need to see the advice that is coming from them in a proper perspective, not at the higher level, but at a lower level. That means we understand, for example, they might have something valuable to offer to us for the health, but we should see the advice they are giving, that is for health, that is for family, that is for behaving properly in the society. That advice, is it contradicting, or is it unfavorable or unsuitable to devotional service, unsuitable to my higher goal of life? That we need to evaluate when the advice is coming, and then appropriately we need to filter that advice on what to accept, what to not accept, by seeing in relation to the higher purpose of life we have. Is that pleasing to my devotional service? Is that favorable for my devotional service? Is that pleasing to Krishna? That is the barometer or filter we pass that advice from. So that advice is coming, we use the filter and take accordingly. Otherwise, we don't let everything others say affect our consciousness. That is one important principle to learn. On the contrary, when the advice is coming from higher spiritual authority, like our Guru, for example, or Srila Prabhupada or Acharyas, then we place a higher importance and higher value for that, because they're spiritually knowledgeable, spiritually experienced, spiritually realized. That's why we place their advice at a higher scale in our life. And then we conduct our ordinary life dealings according to that higher advice, as it is favorable to Krishna consciousness. So that is the principle Prabhupada is sharing with us here. So to summarize, Prabhupada writing in the end of the purport, to be released from miserable conditions, we all go through miserable conditions. How do we get released from that? He's saying we have to become Krishna conscious, number one, and we have to take lessons from exalted personalities like Jadabharata, Lord Krishna, Kapilidev, like that. Krishna's devotees, great acharyas. That is the only way to solve the problems of material life. So don't look at solving problems of material life from others. It's important for us to have mentors other than spiritual mentors, like who can guide us on health matters, who can guide us on fitness matters, who can guide us on financial matters. But that should not come in the way of spiritual development for us. Like that is the point being made here. On the contrary, we take spiritual guidance from spiritual personality, so that way we can conduct our life and solve all the problems of our life. Going to text number 2 now. Text number 2, he says, the talks about master and servant, king and citizens, is all talking about material activities only. People interested in material activities, given in the Vedas, what they do, if somebody is engaged in only material enjoyment, even if they read Vedas, they'll only look for how can I get free from diseases, how can I get more wealth, how can I become rich, how can I become free from problems. That's all they look at, even scriptures also. So it's important to have the right orientation even when we are practicing bhakti. If my orientation is about how can I give enjoyment to my body, then I'll look for only how can I get enjoyment from body, even in the classes, even in the scriptures reading, like that. So that's what he's telling. So they will not place an importance on a higher spiritual understanding, higher spiritual relation, higher spiritual goal of life, like that. So the Prabhupada is commenting by quoting verses from 2nd chapter of Bhagavata that talks about Vedavada Ratis. Vedavada Ratis means, we heard in Bhagavata, somebody who's very learned in Vedas. They know a lot of Vedic knowledge also. But they think the purpose of Vedas is to give us enjoyment. That means purpose of Vedas is to learn how to do yajnas properly, so that we can get more money, more enjoyment in life, or more enjoyment in the next life, or how to go to spiritual, how to go to Swargaloka, heavenly planets, and enjoy there. They think that is the highest goal that is being given by Vedas. So he's saying, King Bharta, Jadabharta now is saying that spiritual advancement is difficult to manifest for such people who are materially absorbed and who are studying Vedas only for material enjoyment, but without understanding the higher goal of Vedas. What is the purpose of Vedas? That's also given in Bhagavad Gita. Vedasya sarve ahameva vedya. So purpose of Vedas is to understand Krishna. How understand Krishna as a source of all of us. How understanding Krishna as the reservoir of all pleasure. Understanding our relationship with Krishna as part and parcel and servant of Krishna. So when we serve Krishna, we not only give pleasure to Krishna, but we are also pleased and satisfied. That's a higher understanding we get from Vedas. But if we are materially absorbed and we are looking for only material enjoyment in Vedas, then we don't get that higher understanding. Even if we are hearing, we don't pay attention to it. Even if we understand it, we don't practice it in our life. That is the real fruit of understanding, is applying in our life practically. So that's what Prabhupada is describing also in purport. Yeah. Now going to third verse. Third verse is describing with an analogy that a dream becomes automatically known to a person as it's false and temporary. Similarly, one eventually realizes that material happiness related to body and mind in this life or in the next life in the heavenly planets is only temporary. So then when one realizes this, so the Vedas, Vedic general knowledge of Vedas cannot give them direct knowledge over the absolute truth, like that is describing. So basically, the point here is, purpose of Vedas is to transcend the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, not stay in the modes of nature. So all kinds of material happiness are not so important to spiritual practitioner. if person, Prabhupada writes, if a person does not come to the conclusion that he has nothing to do with any kind of material happiness, that means that material happiness is not all in all, then he cannot come to the platform of understanding Tattva Gnana or understanding absolute truth. So, even karmis are after getting something in this life, getting something in the next life, or going to Swargaloka and enjoy. That is karmic, karmi's proposition, karma's disposition. Whereas Gnani is, they're thinking, I want to be peaceful by going into merging in Brahma Jyoti like that. And yogis are thinking, I want to get mystic siddhis so I can become so powerful. I can show my powers to everybody like that. Whereas devotees are not thinking about any of these material levels. Devotees are thinking, how can I go to the place of permanent happiness, place of permanent service to Krishna? That way, I can please Krishna and I can also be simultaneously happy. Because when I please Krishna, I am happy automatically. So that's how devotees are thinking. So that's from the first three verses, we learn how from staying in the material platform, thinking about material enjoyment only, we cannot get to understand the higher philosophy of life, higher purpose of life, and we cannot progress into spiritually. Now going to the next section, which is talking about the nature of the mind, how mind is the cause of our material entanglement in the birth and death cycles, this samsara. That is the focus of the next theme for this next set of verses. The fourth verse is describing, as long as the mind is contaminated by the three modes of material nature, then it will make us go after what can I do so I can enjoy, get enjoyment, what can I do to can I avoid suffering like that, or it can make us go into uh, seeking material happiness that may make us go into impious activities. So when the mind is contaminated, it can take us to pious activities in search for more enjoyment, spiritually enjoyment, more enjoyment by meaning by going to authorized ways prescribed in the Vedas, trying to get enjoyment through that ways, like performing yagnas like that, or by being impious activities, sinful activities to get pleasure. One of those two things we mind will force us to do or influence us to do. So then what happens because of the pious activities and impious activities? We're accruing positive or negative karma. Because of that, we'll stay in the material world in one form or other, either in the human body or in the cow body or in the tiger body or monkey body. But we'll stay in the material universe only, not going to spiritual world. That is the point being made in this verse. But Prabhupada's right solution, one must come to the transcendental platform. Otherwise, life's mission will never be fulfilled. This is a common theme in the next verses we'll see. In the text 5, he says, mind is absorbed in desires for pious and impious activities. Why mind is absorbed? Because of the bodily conception. I'm thinking of this body, so my desires will come related to the body only, how to keep body happy. So they're naturally subjected to transformations of lust and anger. So mind brings about different births in different species. He is explicitly stating that Jadabharta. I might become a demigod in heavenly planet, or I might stay as a human being in the earthly planet, or I might become a dog or a hog in a earthly planet, or I might go to lower planetary systems also. But ultimately, I'm staying in this 8,400,000 species of life because mind is polluted by certain material qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, yeah. So now the point being made here is how mind is the cause of trouble for us to stay in the material entanglement. That is the point being made here. So now going to text number 6. Oh yeah. Prabhupada is writing in the purport, quoting Chaitanya Charitamrita, why are we bound like this? Why are we accepting the mind's proposals? Because we forgot our original relationship with Krishna. That ignorance is causing us to listen to mind's proposals to enjoy here, this way, that way, like that. Now, text number 6. So, because of the mind, the living entity enjoys or suffers material distress or material happiness. So, mind is the cause of creating further karma because of this thing. And thus the soul becomes conditioned. Condition means we are we're we're prone to, we have inclination or proclivity to do the same thing again and again and again and again and again, like that. So that is what is the cause of the mind. Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport in this regard. He says mind is the cause of conditioned life. That's why any kind of yoga is focused on controlling the mind. And when you control the mind, that can help in controlling the senses. Then when the mind and senses are properly engaged, especially in devotion service at the lotus feet of Krishna, in service to Krishna, then that purification leads us to become Krishna conscious. That leads us to higher understanding in life, higher spiritual understanding in life, and we can stay in devotional service. So that is the point here. So when mind, for us practicing devotees, mind and senses are purified by engaging them in Krishna service. In the next purport, Prabhupada writes practically how to do that. So going to next 7th verse. He says, mind makes the jiva wander through different species of life, 8,400,000 species of life. Whether it's the different forms of human being, demigod, fat person, skinny person, woman, man, whatever it happens to be. So basically, he's directly saying here, learned scholars say that bodily appearance, that means where I'm appearing beautiful now or ugly now, or bondage into next life, another body, or liberation, are caused by the mind. That means the root cause is the mind. So when we understand the root cause of our bondage is mind, then we can find the solution for that also. Interestingly, in this verse is told, mind is not only the cause of problem, mind is also source of liberation, it is described. That means, like Prabhupada commonly gives the example of a knife. Knife itself is not good or bad. Knife in the hands of a surgeon who is operating somebody to clear a disease, then it's a very good thing, the same knife. But the knife in the hand of a criminal who used to killing others is a bad thing. So knife itself is good. It can be utilized in a good way by surgeon or a bad way by a thief or a criminal in this case. Similarly, mind can be cause of bondage, like how Krishna describes mind can be our enemy if it's uncontrolled, and mind can be our friend if it's controlled, and mind can be cause of our liberation also if we train it, if we utilize it properly, like that. So going to in this purport, Prabhupada is describing how mind can liberate us beyond the modes when we engage it in devotion service. And Prabhupada is starting with how Prabhupada says, Sevon Mikehi Jivado. Prabhupada is describing one important teaching from Rupa Goswami, that engaging in devotion service starts with tongue by tasting prasadam and by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So by that purification, by engaging the tongue and engaging the mind and senses, he gives the example of Ambrish Maharaj, how he used his eyes to see the deity form of the Lord, nose to smell the flower that is offered to the Lord, ears to hear the kirtan of the Lord, hear the glories of the Lord, and a tongue to taste Krishna Prasadam, like that, legs to walk to the temple of the Lord, hands to do service in the temple, like that. When we engage in the mind and senses in service of Krishna, they are purified, and our designations that I'm thinking this body, that designations are also purified. I'm thinking I'm an American, I'm a husband, I'm a great person, I'm a great devotee. All the designations also will get cleared. How? By engaging in service of Krishna. How does that happen? Because Krishna gives us mercy when we engage in service of Krishna. That's how we get purified. That's how we can ultimately get liberated by becoming Krishna conscious. Now, last verse for today, text number 8, is describing how so in the previous verse, what we heard, that mind can be cause of bondage or mind can be cause of liberation. How is that possible? Somebody may get a doubt. So Jirabharta is explaining how that can be possible. Interestingly, Prabhupada gave in the purport already a solution for us by engaging in devotion service. That's how we can make the mind friend and mind cause of liberation, like that. Now, Jirabharta himself is explaining in this verse now by giving an example. He gives an example of a lamp. let us say a lamp has a old style lamp which has a ghee wick and a what is it called, glass container on top of it, a glass cover on top of it. Sometimes we see the glass cover becomes very black. That is because the ghee wick itself is charred up, black. So it gives not only the pure light, it gives black smoke also. The smoke makes the glass container covering it black also. Whereas if you have a same clean ghee wick at the same time, then that can give bright light, and the glass container is not blackened, it's clear, so we can see brightness very nicely. Similarly, same ghee wick is giving smoke, same ghee wick is giving brightness. Similarly, same mind can be, if it is attached, then it can lead to bondage. If it is detached, it can lead to liberation, like that is describing. So how do we develop that detachment from material things and attachment to Krishna? By engaging in devotion service every day, by chanting our rounds nicely, by hearing scriptures, reading scriptures, by doing deity worship, by taking association of devotees, we can develop attachment and absorption in Krishna, Krishna's holy name, Krishna's pastimes. And simultaneously, we develop detachment from material sense gratification, detachment from bodily conception of life, detachment from matter, for that matter. So that is the key secret Jadabharta is giving us. So for today we learned that how when we are materially absorbed, we cannot understand absolute truth knowledge clearly. So we should be careful on where we are, what is our goal of life, where we are absorbing ourselves like that. That is one thing we learned. Second thing we heard about is how mind is the cause of the our going around in different bodies in the material world like that. So mind can be similarly, even though mind is the cause of the problem, mind can also be part of the solution if we engage the mind in service of Krishna. By engaging the mind and senses in service of Krishna, then we'll get purified, and through that we develop attachment to Krishna, and through that we'll develop detachment from material world and matter and this body. That way, we can elevate ourselves to spiritual world in service of Krishna. That's the essential themes we heard today. We'll continue tomorrow, talking more about the functions of the mind and more about how a liberated soul who's absorbed in how is absorbed in Supreme Lord's service all the time, and then how such a liberated soul is delivered from the illusion of matter, illusion of Maya, like that. That we'll discuss tomorrow. That will cover the whole chapter of instructions from Jayabharata to King Rahugana. Yeah, we'll pause here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindubhya cha Paditana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.